Israeli troops continue gathering and preparing on the border with Lebanon for what could soon be full-on war. Their purpose is to stop Hezbollah terrorists who've been attacking northern Israel from Lebanon almost daily for months. That's forced some 80,000 Israelis to flee their homes and empty out whole communities.
Living right now in Kiryat Shmona is very sad. The city is empty most of the time.
Hezbollah hit the north with some 40 rockets Thursday, saying it was to avenge a number of recent Israeli strikes on the terrorist group. As the war against Hamas grinds on in Gaza and tensions mount in the north, Israel's prime minister keeps trying to draw the world's attention to Iran, the massive power behind Hezbollah, Hamas, and other groups. Benjamin Netanyahu is warning Iran and his proxies are, quote, on the march to conquer the Middle East. Visiting the north, Israel's President Isaac Herzog complained the international community is doing little to stave off war. So he said it shouldn't be surprised if, quote, the situation spirals out of control. Even as Israel braces for what could be another massive and painful war, survivors of the Hamas sneak attacks at the Nova Music Festival on October 7th came together Thursday in exuberant defiance of terrorism. It was their first mass gathering since the brutal assaults. Nimrod Arnin's sister was among the more than 360 killed there.
On that Saturday at the beginning of October, our light was put to the test, a test which in our worst nightmares we didn't imagine we will have to pass.
On stage, dancers reenacted the horror of that morning. And on the ground, tens of thousands stood in a long moment of silence to commemorate all who were lost. But the main message of the day? Israelis will not let the terrorists steal away their full embrace of life, their joy, their dance.
Nothing can stop us from living our lives here in Israel, and nothing can stop us from keep on dancing and living.
In a moment of enlightenment, we realize what is going to be the essence of our life from now on. We will dance again.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Just incredible. Well, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning about Iran. What are his concerns?
Well, Wendy, he's talking about a severed front war that Iran has against Israel that would include Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis down in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria that are backed by Iran, the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, and Iran itself. What they also want to do, Wendy, is they want to topple Jordan. And basically their strategy is what's called a ring of fire surrounding Israel. And they do, as Paul said in his report, they want to conquer the Middle East. That includes Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries. Their long-term goal, a global caliphate. And Netanyahu recently reinstated working groups on Iran's nuclear program. That includes the Mossad, the Shin Bet. Iran's nuclear program is advancing dramatically. Some people say they're on the brink of a nuclear weapon. They've tripled their uranium enrichment. And the IAEA that has been monitoring Iran's nuclear program said there's no credible civilian justification for what they're doing right now. And Netanyahu also said at any cost and in any way will thwart Iran's intention to destroy Israel.
Chris, how close is a major war in the north, and how will this differ from the war with Hamas?
Wendy, it seems very close. It could be just weeks away. The IDF is preparing maybe 3 divisions, 25,000 ground troops that may go into South Lebanon. Diplomacy that's been trying for the last several months is not working. Hezbollah won't unilaterally withdraw to the Litani River. That's about 18 miles from the Israeli border. Wendy, you remember in 2006, we were there on the Lebanese border on the second Lebanon war, and Israel is promising it's not going to be like that. This will be a much bigger war. Hezbollah is maybe 10 times the size of Hamas. And Israel's also saying that Lebanon will pay a price for this.
Yeah, I'll never forget the Katyushas going overhead and hearing the machine gun fire. But now they're saying it will be much worse than what we even experienced. Well, you were just back here in the States for 10 days. Tell us, what were your impressions of being away from all that's happening in Israel?
Well, Wendy, it's kind of an interesting experience. When you're here in Israel, almost day by day, you're hearing about what's happening in the south, what's happening in the north, and the possibility of a war, a much wider war in the north. I would say that some are very aware of what's happening here in the region. I would add some of those people are watching CBN News, but others are very unaware of what's happening and why it's important to them. You know, the battle Israel is facing, and they've been saying this for many months since October 7th, that really Israel is the tip of the spear in the battle against global Islam. You know, Israel is on the front lines, but the larger target is the United States and the West. And there's a saying that goes, you know, what stays in the Middle East doesn't stay in what goes on in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. So it's very important for people to be aware of what's happening here and certainly be praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Absolutely. And they can, of course, always get more about what's happening on your show called Jerusalem Dateline. Tell us what we can expect on tonight's show.
Wendy, we'll have a update on the war. We're going to have analysis with CBN News Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl. We have a story on the ultra-Orthodox being drafted into the IDF and why that actually poses a threat to the coalition government of Benjamin Netanyahu. We have a story about the grandson of a Nazi officer. He tells his story of what it's like to grow up in that kind of a family. And also, we have a story, an added story about the survivors of the Nova Music Festival, and they're trying to heal and rebuild their lives after what happened on October 7th.
Oh, I loved what we just saw in Paul's piece, and they said it's a time. There's a time to mourn, and there's a time to dance. So happy to see that, and happy to see you, Chris. Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem. Thanks as always. Stay safe.